As if I can even remember when I get around to anything anyway. Look at that effect. Wasn't that lovely? What? My head was pounding. He's still alive! The sky was bright. It was cold too. It hurt. Each sensation I felt led to a new and different one awakening. I remember now. I remember this. Sort of. When I came to, I was lying face first on a dry river bed. I guess he didn't hit the rocks too hard. Few body parts hurt a lot. Understandable. The skin over a bunch of my joints was torn, turned blue or red or oozing blood. I could tell it was my bones that were in pain from the agony I felt whenever I moved. I looked up and saw how high the bridge from which I'd fallen was. Considering I'd dropped from there, it was a miracle that I could open my eyes again. Right next to me was a broken upside-down car seat, which I guess some pranksters had brought here. Maybe this thing had been conveniently lying right under me, allowing me to escape instant death. Miraculous. Of course I didn't know whether this miracle was fortunate or unfortunate. I'd failed to die and now I was still stuck in this insane world. How long had I been unconscious for? The sun was high in the sky, so it looked like only 1 or 2 hours had passed. But my body's sluggishness didn't make it feel at all like so short a time had gone by. Mentally it felt like I'd been asleep here for a decade. The whole feeling returned to my body, the more the pain flooded in. It hurt so much it would have been better not to have woken up. I needed to get to a doctor. Yeah, to Coach's clinic. The term Coach's clinic brought back memories back one after another, memories I wish I hadn't recalled. Stoke was no longer on the bridge. She would have returned to Hinamizawa by now. And she would put on some clothes, go to the clinic, get a checkup, and report on how crazy I had seemed. The police were waiting for me without a doubt. This time, would they find out for real that I'd killed her uncle and arrest me, or would they just send me to a mental institution that I thought they might? Still, I didn't care which it was. Please, someone stop all this pain. You could boil me or cook me after that, whatever you want. I began to walk unsteadily, but just limply along. I went downstream and then through an animal trail-like path in the woods. I walked haphazardly, searching for a path I knew. Eventually, I finally came across a familiar road and set off towards the clinic. Not to my house, but to the clinic, which treated me like a lunatic. It was hot and humid. There was no wind and the air was stagnant. For a while now I've been smelling the terrible stench of burned eggs, and it made my face scrunch up. And then at last I noticed something. I couldn't hear any cicadas. It was the first time I'd heard Hinamizawa be so utterly silent. That goofy music had to be inserted. When I thought back, it seemed like birds always chirped in the morning, cicadas always cried loudly in the afternoon, and Higurashi always rose up in chorus in the evening. Always something to hear. I couldn't hear a single insect. The only thing I could hear was the rustling of the wind brushing the treetops. I never experienced this sort of quiet before. Even the only sound coming from the trees lacked life somehow. The trees were yellow and many leaves were spread on the ground, despite it being too early for autumn. Well, it's autumn now. Even the weeds that had been growing so persistently at the side of the road had yellowed brown and lost their vigor. Only the sunlight itself was of the June Hinamizawa I knew, and yet it seemed like the seasons had switched all of a sudden. Looking at the fallen leaves and rotting weeds led me to spot a few small insects turned on their backs. They weren't moving. They were corpses. I looked closer to see insect corpses scattered all around, like a child had collected them as samples and then sewn them about. The stench, what was it? It was terrible, like burnt eggs, combined with all the bug corpses and leaves falling from the trees in summer. Had someone sprayed herbicides or pesticides around here? Even at school, we apparently fumigate, they call it disinfection or something, once or twice a year. I hadn't run into anybody despite how bright it was outside. It was mid-afternoon, and yet I felt like I were sauntering about at midnight. Well, with this smell, nobody would want to be walking around outside. Just what was this anyway? There was no sound, no noise, not even a breath in Hinamizawa's silence. Apart from the ominous, albeit goofy music, the school would come into view right after turning this corner, and yet I couldn't hear any commotion at all. None of the shouts or grunts that children always made. It was simply quiet. Just as pretending to ignore the silence had grown intolerable, I saw the school. And finally I heard something. It was the sound of a few trucks. There were a few very tall trucks parked in the schoolyard, idling. About 10 workers in raincoats were unloading things from their trunks. It was hot and humid even in my casual clothing. I couldn't imagine how unbearable that must have been. And then I remembered. Our school was rented from the Forest Service field office building, wasn't it? It wasn't strange at all for Forest Service trucks to be doing some kind of work in the schoolyard. Besides, what did forest rangers do anyway? I felt bad for them having to work in such heat and with such a stench around about. They were taking colourful cargo out of the truck and lining up in the schoolyard. There were containers, fairly large ones, inside multicoloured patchwork bags. Heavy, too, they were being carried in pairs. They lined them up very neatly like tuna at a riverside fish market. Several dozen hundreds of tuna were completely filling the fairly wide schoolyard up. I forgot my pain for a little while, captivated by this big forest ranger job I'd never seen before. As I stood there watching in a daze, the people in raincoats working on the other side noticed me. One of them pointed me out and they shouted a few things back and forth. I thought they might yell at me for getting in their way, so I decided to leave post-haste. But then 2 trucks drove up behind me. I stepped aside and they entered the schoolyard. Sheets covered their trunks, but I could tell they were completely full. As they passed, there was an awful smell that made me want to choke. It wasn't the same burnt egg smells as before, but an even worse one like rotten crab meat. What on earth was it? I'd been enshrouded in one terrible stench after another all day, when certain white letters emblazoned on the side of the passing trucks caught my eye. Ground Self-Defense Forces. What? Self-Defense Forces? Like the army? I was the army in the schoolyards. Hey, you! Where did you come from? Suddenly someone slapped me on the shoulders from behind. I turned around and a canopied SDF jeep was parked there. The SDF person had on a green raincoat and a gas mask like in the movies, carrying a compressed air cylinder. He didn't look normal, there wasn't an inch of exposed skin anywhere. What did When I tried to talk, I stretched a wound on my head. It made the SDF people exchange glances. I couldn't see their faces through their masks and they seemed surprised. Do you live in Hinamizawa? Can you tell us your name and address? Well, yeah, I sort of live here. My name is Bar. Oh, and my address, Hinamizawa Village, Shishapone. After seeing me tell him my name and address without hesitation, one of the SDF people watching from a jeep started talking into a radio. Base, do you read? Base, do you read? We have a 402 survivor recovered. 402. I repeat, we have a 402. We found a survivor. He's in front of the Forest Service office. Space, we copy. Secure the survivor at once. What is his status? Healthy. Wounded all over, but not fatally. He can walk on his own. We'll send him to HQ for safety. I was prepared to go along with the police, but the STF... I couldn't help but think it seemed a little bit much. He's not really thought of what this indicates, does he? They urged me into the back of the jeep, and then they told me to put on this gigantic gas mask. I did so, and one of the troops fiddled around with it, strapping it to me. It was heavy, hard to see out of, hot and difficult to breathe. Just looking at the world through the lenses made it lose its sense of reality. My breathing sounded like some giant monster through the mask. At this point, I had no idea what was happening. With much trepidation, I asked the trooper adjusting my mask. Excuse me, something happened. Where were you? What were you doing? Hey, don't answer a question with more questions. I was the one asking you. Fell from a rope bridge way back in the mountains. I think I passed out on the riverbed. I don't actually know what day it is. Today is June 22nd, 1983. Wednesday. That surprised me. Stoke could push me off the bridge on Tuesday the 21st. That meant I'd been asleep on that riverbed for an entire day. Forgive me for asking again, but... Oh wait, no. Forgive me for asking again, but did something happen? Why is the SDF here? Is this a drill? Had my question been that difficult for him? None of the troopers would answer me. The one in the driver's seat talking on his own radio turned on the vehicles. He turned the dial and some broadcast station or another came in. I started listening to the voice of a radio announcer I was familiar with. It was conducted at the Prime Minister's office. In regards to questions from the press that the SDF not responding to the disaster promptly was directly related to this unprecedented, unheard-of catastrophe. Chief Cabinet Secretary Okuno had this to say. And so I believe that once the SDF received a dispatch order from the prefectural governor, they responded promptly. According to him, the SDF was prompt to respond to the crisis after receiving their orders. He implied that it was the prefecture's responsibility for taking too long to comprehend the situation. When did the governor who requested the SDF's dispatch actually become aware of the outbreak of such an unprecedented catastrophe? And did he not invite such damage because of the time lost before he sent the request for disaster relief? In other words, because of the bureaucracy. We are awaiting further investigation into this matter. That was Mr. Okada reporting from the Prime Minister's official residence. At this point, we can take another look at the political response following this disaster. In the middle of the night between June 21st and June 22nd, different music that we have yet to hear, I think, played. A large-scale disaster broke out in Hinamizawa village, Shishobone. This soundtrack makes me think of Evo's Search for Eden. Like the sad music that plays in the dinosaur extinction parts. The details have not yet been investigated, but there was an eruption of volcanic gas from somewhere in the Hinamizawa area. The gas was relatively heavy, and as it spewed out, it began to flow. The flow went down along a small river and headed directly into Hinamizawa village. After a few hours, it had covered the entire region. It happened in the middle of the night, 2 to 4 a.m. Every home and household in the village was affected. With most of the residents asleep, it is thought that all died without noticing the crisis. The catastrophe striking in the middle of the night caused its detection to come too late. But there was still one small opportunity to have noticed it. 3 a.m. A news dealer's shop in Okinawa sent a vehicle carrying the morning newspaper to its branch office in Hinamizawa. Usually the shop would be contacted upon the vehicle's arrival. This morning that didn't happen. The news dealer's shop made repeated calls but got no response. The shopkeeper sent his eldest son to check on things, but they lost contact with him as well. Extremely regrettable. If they had contacted the police or fire department at this point, it's highly possible the situation would have turned out more positively. At the very least, it's possible that a portion of the village might have been saved from tragic annihilation. 6 a.m. Residents in areas in the same region began continuously calling 119 to report the smell of rotten eggs, dizziness, nausea, and headaches. The fire department received the same reports, all from the same combined region. They speculated a truck loaded with chemicals may have gotten into an accident and reported it to the local police. 6:30 a.m. Contact was lost with a patrol car on duty in the Hinamizawa area after the officer reported the smell of rotten eggs. The local police considered the possibility of a large-scale disaster involving highly lethal gas, reported to the prefecture and prefectural police at 7:15 a.m. 8 a.m. The governor was traveling to nearby prefectures for inspections, so in accordance with regulations, prefectural environmental disaster prevention chief was provisionally escalated to Director General and set up a disaster countermeasures office. However, without contacting the governor, the countermeasures came too late. As has recently been pointed out by citizens groups, his trip with honorary Diet members to inspect other prefectures was based solely on good relations, and his rumored they preoccupied themselves with a drinking party. Sources close to him claimed the governor had been drinking all night and had gone to sleep in a drunken state. He was completely drunk when the environmental chief phoned him in as well, and apparently he could not get him to pay any attention to the matter. And so it took about an hour for the governor to sober up, gain an understanding of the situation and gather information. Though not as extreme as the governor's case, the environmental chief who became Director General in the governor's absence will likely also be questioned about his negligence. In addition, without any procedures in place on the prefecture's side that predicted catastrophes this massive, they would always react too late, and that ended up being fatal. 9:12 a.m. On the advice of the prefectural police, the governor requested a disaster relief message from the SDF. By the time the chemical defense unit equipped with protective gear arrived on the scene, 8 hours had already passed since the incident's outbreak. Whatever the case may be, it was unfortunate this happened while everyone was sleeping in the middle of the night, and I just got messaged. Had the same disaster occurred during the day, it likely would have been entirely different. All households in the Hinamizawa village region were wiped out. There were over 1,000 victims. The STF is still confirming the situation on the ground, but their results are predicted to only increase that number. Here with us is the studio today is Dr. Fujiwara, a professor at La University who is well acquainted with volcanic disasters, and I'm being messaged, so a moment. Right, I've also plugged in the charger again because the battery's running low, so we'll have a bit of that bzzz. Actually, that'd be quite loud actually, so I'm gonna try just the volume bit. And I hope that doesn't fuck up the audio too much though, if at all. I prefer it not to fuck up the audio. Shit happens. Doctor, can such a sudden and horrible outburst of poisonous gas actually happen? Isn't that all unusual for this to happen right around craters at least? Japan is a volcanic nation and so has many active volcanoes. There is always a danger of hazardous gas around any of these craters. It's generally a rule among mountain climbers not to go near them. Does this mean rotten egg smell that visited Hinamizawa village was the normal sort of gas from volcanic craters? Judging by how it smelled like rotten eggs, we think it was hydrogen sulfide, a gas seen particularly frequently externals compared to other volcanic gases. If it stands, it becomes extremely dangerous. Hinamizawa village is very far away from the craters of any volcanoes, and hydrogen sulfide being generated even from a place not close to a crater. I don't know all the details, so I can't say anything concrete. But in other countries, there are records of gas eruptions due to magma buildup under hot springs. It's an extremely rare event, but it is possible for such a thing to happen even in a region not near craters. Thank you very much, Doctor. We appear to have an announcement from the Japan Defense Agency. Miss Morikawa, are you there? Yes, I'm at the Japan Defense Agency. The agency has just made an announcement regarding the source of the Hinamizawa village gas disaster. An analysis from the Ground Self-Defense Forces Department of Chemistry has found that the gas was a mixture of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide. Mr. Morikawa, do you know whether the gas is still erupting or spreading to nearby areas? According to the STF's 9th Division, who are currently engaged in a rescue operation at Hinamizawa village, the gas density is steadily decreasing. They've announced that the damage will not spread. However, it does not change the fact that surrounding areas are still in danger, and that very strict observation must be maintained. That was Morikawa from the Japan Defense Agency. And now we have a report on the state of those who are being made to evacuate the open area. Shimoshino Saki Elementary School is one of the evacuation sites, and we currently have a reporter on this. Scene. What? Inside a jeep clambering and bouncing along the rough road, not answering my muttered question. Unprecedented catastrophe destroyed Hinamizawa in a single night. Where was Hinamizawa village anyway? Someplace deep in the mountains, right? Names of places I heard about on the radio were always like that. They were all places I've never heard of, much less knew the locations of. Wiped out? What does that mean? Don't they usually say how many died and how many were injured? How many people were alive? Where did everyone evacuate to? Eventually we came into view of Coach's clinic. For the first time I saw the flag of Japan hanging on a pole outside. Japan's circular sun hung down as though exhausted. Many STF tents were set up in the clinic's big parking lot. Many security vehicles were parked there as well. When they saw the jeep coming, men in white clothing and gas masks came running out of the clinic, frantic, carrying a stretcher. You're going to be alright. How do you feel? Can you walk? Yeah. Ow. And because of my ow, they forced me to lay on the stretcher anyway. People who seemed like doctors were looking at me and notifying others of my condition via radio. Multiple wounds, high possibility of fractures and internal damage. Large lacrimation of the head. People is normal, but even without bleeding from the fundus, brain damage is still possible. And then from the clinic entrances, people lying on stretchers were brought outside to replace me. Judging by their clothing, they were from Hinamizawa, and that's how I knew they were victims. They brought the stretchers in front of a truck. Two troops holding shoulders and legs like some kind of baggage picked them up and threw them into the truck. In the trunk of the truck, people's bodies piled in heaps. They were just like baggage, and they told me they were already nothing but shells. Jesus Christ. That moment I remember until those colorful sacks filling the trucks, and them lined up in the schoolyard like a fish market. Hundreds of empty shells. Corpses, 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 corpses! You jackasses, don't just throw the victims in like that! They lived here! Troops carrying the sacks answered me with a humble salute. The world didn't need this insane version of Hinamizawa. My final wish, again, was granted. I didn't understand anything anymore. None of it mattered. I wished, I cursed, and then it happened the next day. Then please, tomorrow morning, let me die. That insane night. It's still going on. Please, please end it already. He definitely wouldn't have anything to live for after all that insane shit, would he? Hey, he's lost consciousness! Shout his name! Quickly! Higurashi! Can you hear me? If you can hear me, just blink! Higurashi! 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 Suddenly the words, well, didn't matter to me anymore. I wasn't interested in the cries. His breathing stopped. Get his supplementary tract open. Use CPR. Make him live. Damn it! Damn it! No more dead people. Nobody deserves to die. Don't kill him. Don't kill him! I could hear the voice of a man crying and screaming in my ears. Nobody deserves to die. His words came from his heart. They were so commonplace, and they soaked into my heart too. Maybe it was a mistake to take someone's life, even if it was to save Sudoku. If this is the price I had to pay, this horrible tragedy. This is a little much, Shiro-sama. Why? They never punish me. Come to think of it, Sudoku said something. Shiro-sama's actual curse never goes for the target at first. It kills everyone they love before that. Shiro-sama's curse. It was a convenient excuse, I told myself at the very end, but it wasn't my curse that destroyed it, but Shiro-sama's. Given that I was in a stretcher, this next bit might have been obvious. But last of all, I realized one thing. Yeah. Today, I had not heard those footsteps following me, even once. And now, I was liberated. As the cries of Higurashi I couldn't have been hearing filled my mind. The tearful ensemble was the only funeral march I had. Liberation Achievement announced. June 22nd, 1983, early morning. A widespread disaster occurred in Hinamizawa village, Shipone Prefecture. Volcanic gas, carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide erupted from Higurashi swamp, one of the Hinamizawa's water sources, and spreads through the entire village. There were 1,200 victims. 20 have gone missing. The catastrophe was unprecedented, forcing local governments to evacuate approximately 600,000 people. Damn. According to later investigations, magma pools and hot rings were uncovered directly under Higurashi swamp, and the gas that gushed from it was determined to be the cause of the disaster. In addition, directly after the incident broke out, many came forth claiming the disaster was a curse based on Hinamizawa village legends, first sparking a wave of chaos. There were apparently local legends of a curse spread in the miasma destroying the village, and some scholars believe a similar gas disaster may have happened in the past and remain part of these legends. More extreme periodicals suggested this was an extension of the string of freak death incidents that had been happening in recent years in Hinamizawa village, stirring interest and fears about this cursed voyage to summer. In addition, relatives of those in Hinamizawa village who had escaped the disaster complained of sickness afterwards and were hospitalized. Some of them even died of unknown causes, feel encouraging such extreme opinions. On top of that, several relatives professing to have been possessed by orchers and sorts committed suicide in strange ways, and the impact of the disaster inside the entire nation can no longer be ignored. While visions of terrible toxic gas sneaking around in the middle of the night killing people spilled across the country, causing a steady stream of people complaining of insomnia, difficulty breathing, headache, dizziness, etc. Some who identified themselves as being obsessed by it began doing odd things. Most of these were specifically attributed by tabloid press, but afterwards some even began to call the mental issues arising from the Hinamizawa tragedy the Hinamizawa syndrome. The Hinamizawa village, region the object of all kinds of rumors and speculation, is currently closed off, and even flying overhead is prohibited. The prohibition was at one point undone as a result of a decrease in the gas's density, but that autumn another gas burst was confirmed, leading to the area being coordinated off again. Word is that the area is sound asleep, all traces of its former life intact and left to rot. Only one survivor remains, Keita Mabarage, who lived at Hinamizawa village. At the time of rescue, he had some trouble breathing due to fluid build-up in his lungs. As a result of life-saving procedures, he was kept alive. He's currently in a general hospital somewhere in the prefecture. So he's still alive, then. The press have been asking for him for some time, but all interviews are being refused. What did he see in Hinamizawa? What happened between June 21st and June 22nd in Hinamizawa village? Today he remains silent, unwilling to speak of it. Understandable. Jesus Christ. Great Hinamizawa. Disaster, you didn't let me read that. What was that? Oh, Jiro Tomtak, a real name unknown, possibly committed suicide in the village. Duckno strangled. Oishi went missing. Komatoni went missing. Kyosuke killed himself. Rika was murdered. Warrior lives. Oh, even Ren and Mion died as well. Satoko died. Oh no, she went missing. She didn't necessarily die, but she probably did. And like, oh, those are his classmates as well. All his classmates and all, man. Oh, Shion even died as well. It doesn't really give you much time to read that. Actually, is it the first time we've seen a credit sequence in these novels? Man, why does the font have to be... well, text have to be so small? Yeah, there it is, right there. Background location. Is that the name of the place? Music studio. I remember when I played this back in the day, well, read it back in the day, the credits were entirely in Japanese. I guess they've translated it this time around. Wasn't that lovely? No. That was soul crushing, that. There's a lot to Higurashi that we do not yet understand. 2003, late summer. What? gone into the future. Nearly, well, the past from now, but this is the future from where it takes place. It took place in 1983 or something like that. An elderly couple living in Osaka Prefecture discovered a cassette tape while organizing the possessions of their son, who passed away 8 years ago. The son went missing from his fishing boat, capsized in 1995. He was 47 at the time of his death. Who is this? 8 years later, in 2003, they had begun to organize their son's remains in order to organize their minds and came across the cassette tape in question. From 1975 to 1989, the deceased had experience working as a journalist for photography periodical, and this tape is thought to have been graded during that time. Oh, it must be Tomitake, maybe. The label on the tape read 11/28/1983 KHMO. I don't know. I just thought the tape was recorded during an interview with Hinamizawa, the only survivor of the Great Hinamizawa disaster that occurred in June of 1983. As the only person who lived through the disaster on the night of June 21st, shrouded in mystery, many interested parties attempted to question him. So it can't have been Tomitake then. It must be someone else. But he never once spoke physically to anyone in a public place. Therefore, the tape caused quite a stir, possibly being of extremely high value. Click. Okay, that must be Keiichi then. It's really hard to talk about stuff when I know I'm being recorded. You've been recorded this whole time, Keiichi. This has been a let's play. Please don't worry about it. Here, it won't be a problem if I do this, right? After this, the sound quality dramatically decreases. Did he kill the recording device or something? Well, let's get started. Here's my first question. Keiichi-kun, where were you on the night of the great disaster? I've gone behind the shrine and took a path through the woods for a while. There's a rope bridge there, a little while before you get into the mountains. I fell from there and lost consciousness. Did this happen during the night of disaster between the 21st and the 22nd? No. It was the morning of the 21st on Tuesday, which means I woke up the afternoon of the next day. I think I was out for a day and a half. Why on earth were you there? I mean, I'm sure everyone wants to know, but the bridge you fell from that day, a weekday, I might add, was quite far from both your house and the school, wasn't it? Speaking frankly, there are some who say you knew of the great disaster beforehand, and fell from the rope bridge as you were trying to flee the village. This isn't a joke. Please don't be so arbitrary about this. I think it's a terrible thing to say too. Please don't be offended. Anyway, about the rope bridge you fell from. It was right there on the map, right? The rope bridge beyond the back of the shrine and through the path in the woods. Probably. I never went over there, so I can't say for sure. I guess I just want to know why you went out somewhere and you'd never been before on a weekday morning. And then, well, about the riverbed you fell unconscious on. Have you heard the rumors about that being impossible? Impossible. That word. Again. For a little while, Keiichi Maibara mutters the word impossible several times. Why would it be impossible? You know how the volcanic gas originated in the Onagafuchi swamp? Some scholars did some pretty delicate simulations and modeling and discovered something very interesting. The volcanic gas was heavier than the air, so it went along the ground, flowing into lower and lower places, kind of like what water does. And with Onagafuchi swamp as its source, they were able to test how much time it would take for the gas to erupt and spread across the whole village. So, well, that riverbed you were unconscious on, the gas, it would have flowed down there. I don't even understand what you're getting at. In other words, if you were really passed out on that riverbed, you would have been in the middle of the toxic gas that was spreading everywhere that night. That means there was no chance you could have been passed out there. But he was. Allow me to be a little more frank. I think that maybe you might be telling a lie. During the great disaster you were hiding in a safe place, keeping an eye out for when the gas got thinner, then reappeared and were scared by the STF. How about that? Is that right on the mark? For a short time the journalist presses Keiichi Maibara further, in a teasing way, but all that can be heard are heavy sighs. Even if that was the case, I wouldn't be surprised at this point. What do you mean you wouldn't be surprised? Was this recording really taken vacation by bars? Some harbor suspicions. Was that on the screen the whole time, or did it just now appear? I think it only just appeared. You said it before, didn't you? That it was impossible. Impossible things happen in that Hinamizawa all the time. The people who shouldn't be exist. Dead people end up alive. It's not really that unusual. And for what I, of all people, would be asked to prove, I was still alive when I was supposed to have died. The journalist and Keiichi both laughed for a while. Now, to verify it's a fantasy, I had the others of the Maibara family check tapes with his voice in it. However, the sound was not clear, and much time had passed, so the relatives I checked with couldn't remember what he sounded like. I was unable to gain positive proof it was actually Keiichi Maibara's voice. Alright then, I'll change the subject. What do you think of the debate about whether this disaster was the curse, the 5th year of the serial freak death incidents of Hinamizawa? I don't think it was. I was the curse that year, after all. What do you mean? What do I was just answering the question. Notes also remain regarding the date 11/28 written on a tape. Curse, well, you probably won't believe me when I tell you this. I was the one who caused it. I was the one who wished for the whole village to die, and it happened. What an exciting story. Exciting. I suppose you could call it that. After Keiichi Maibara's failed suicide attempt on a certain August day 2 months after the disaster, he was diagnosed with a mental disorder and transported to a treatment facility. I was the one who killed Takuma-san and Coach Anoishi too. At the time I had some kind of divine power. Yeah, I suppose it was like footsteps. Footsteps? Wait, what's that supposed to mean? Have you never heard footsteps before? Tap, click, clack. The facility never allowed any news coverage, so it's extremely unlikely that a tape from the media dated after August 1983 would have had his voice on it. The day when you're walking around, drive stops suddenly, something interesting will happen. Anyway, if you hear an extra footstep, even though you already stopped walking, you'd better be careful, you know. Yes, I'll be careful. Is that what I'm saying really that funny? However, the reporter had been criticized for his forceful methods of collecting data while he was active, so there's still a possibility that he broke into the facility and forced Keiichi Maibara to talk. You've been doing nothing but laughing in my face this whole time. You're just like Coach. You pretend to sympathize with me to listen to what I have to say, but your eyes are telling me you think I'm a lunatic. That's not true. No, I can tell. Your eyes are the same as Coach's. Is this truly Keiichi Maibara's voice? The authenticity of this recording is still wrapped in mystery. I never heard footsteps again after that day, so I don't think I have that terrible power anymore. Perhaps right here, right now, I wish for you to die. I wish for your death for saying all those unpleasant things. This time, why don't I decide how you die? Takuma-san was burned to death, so let's go with the opposite with water. I hope you drown and die, how's that? 15 years after this tape was created, the reporter, just as Keiichi Maibara had predicted, died in an accident out on the sea. Well, it was a long many years after, though. If I'm in top form like I was then, you'd die before tomorrow morning for sure. Now then, I wonder how many days it will take you to drown. You'd better be careful, you know. Don't go getting yourself killed by some stupid curse I put on you, okay? The recording ends in the middle of Keiichi Maibara's laughter. Eerie. And Keiichi Maibara. What about him? Late on the night of 11:30, 30th, 2 days after Records remain of the strange words he kept giving after pressing the call button the day before he died. Oh, so he did die then. An extra set of footsteps.
Wasn't that spooky? Yeah, that was pretty creepy, yeah.
Man, this one had it all, this arc, didn't it? Comic relief, messed up shit, and creepy shit as well. My god, that last part though, my god. Well, that was a long-ass, drawn-out ending, really, wasn't it? I didn't even get to read that. Achievement unlocked, the Great Hinamizawa Disaster, but we unlocked the all-cast review thing, I think. My god. Just damn. It's like not only do I mean like it's just it just punches you repeatedly in the gut, doesn't it? Like when they stumble upon Rika's freaking ritualistic murdered corpse, that was like an ultimate gut punch. And it expanded beyond that. Keiichi gets thrown literally off a bridge, more or less. And when he wakes up, finds out that, like, pretty much the majority of the residents have died. And judging by that, he was the lone survivor. So the other ones that went missing probably died as well. And that included Satoko, so she probably died as well. That is just fucking straight up tragic. And the next question arc is much shorter and kind of very different. It's not really as disturbing or anything. It's mostly like because it doesn't take place in Hinamizawa, if I recall. Well, actually, it does. I think a bit of it, but it's more from an outsider perspective. It's a different character that comes into the series. I think he only appears in maybe 2 or 3 arcs in general, but this will be next one is his one, and it'll focus a bit more on Rika as well. But we'll be seeing more Mahjong than anything for that one, really. As I point out, the last question arcs like that, and then we'll move on to the answer arcs after that. But first, we've got to go through the, all cast review, see what all the characters are just like, what the fuck was that all about? And they'll all be cheery, but they'll also be like, nah, that was a terrible ending. I know Satoko will probably be like that. What the hell? God damn it, last time it was like, that was shit in the last one, and now this one's even worse. When will it get better, damn it? But I'll do that recording some other time, because I've recorded literally 2 hours, pretty much. I was not expecting it to take this long to record till the ending of this question arc. So, we will conclude this question arc in the next part. And we'll also go over the achievements. I'm pretty sure all the... Oh, no. Actually. Yeah, there's still one achievement left. Which is obviously to... I don't know why it's showing the Great Hinamizawa Disaster one. We've unlocked that one. But the last one to unlock is to go through the all-cast review session, which was the inspiration for the After LP talk that I do at the end of every LP. So, I'll see you next time. It's just like, what can you say after that? It's like, holy shit. I mean, how did Tatarigoroshi end again? Trying to, like, recall. Like, compared to Tatarigoroshi, which, like, up till now, I deem the most horrific ones, most disturbing ones of the question arcs. And the first answer arc is the answer arc to that one. And believe me, if you thought Tatarigoroshi was messed up, just wait till you see its answer arc. You'll get some more, you'll get answers, alright? You'll get perspective, you'll see shit, and you'll be like, what the fuck? And shit. But that's not for a while. And they still haven't released the second answer arc, which is the answer arc to Higurashi, and it's kind of different, but kind of see where they were going with it. And the answer of the Tatarigoroshi is where shit gets real. I mean, shit got real here. So wait till you see the answer arc to this one. Then the answer arc to the next question arc, which is essentially the answer arc to the whole series. Man, just you wait for that one as well. It hasn't even been released. It probably won't be released for ages at this rate. Anyways, I'll see you next time for the whole cast review session and conclusion of this arc, so that we can move on to the next one. See you next time, viewers. See you next time.